The first day at Blackridge High was supposed to be quiet for Alina, a chance to breathe and finally start over after years of moving from place to place. But the moment she stepped through the gates, the air felt too heavy, as if the shadows themselves were whispering warnings. Students stared, some with curiosity, others with suspicion, because everyone knew Blackridge belonged to one person, Damon Creed, the self-appointed king of the school, feared not because of strength, alone but because he ruled through a strict set of unwritten rules he forced on everyone, rules that broke spirits and bent students to his will. And as Alina walked deeper into the courtyard, unaware of the hierarchy or the quiet terror that Damon inspired, she accidentally stepped onto the marble emblem carved into the ground, an ancient Panther symbol that the students knew better than to touch, because touching it meant defying the Creed Code, a set of commands Damon believed made him untouchable. But Alina didn't know any of this, didn't know that every pair of eyes widened the moment her shoe crossed the line, didn't know that Damon himself turned his head sharply from across the yard, his jaw tightening as if someone had insulted his ancestors, and with a slow, predatory walk he approached her. His gang of bullies, Rex, Marla, and Stone, forming a triangle around him like loyal attack dogs preparing for a hunt. The courtyard fell silent, whispers freezing in the air as Damon circled her like a vulture sizing up a meal, mocking her clothes, her silence, her lack of fear, and when she offered a polite, confused smile instead of bowing her head, something inside Damon snapped, because no one ever stood straight in front of him. No one dared look at him without trembling. And the fact that she had touched his emblem made it worse, made it personal, made it a message he refused to ignore. So with a voice dripping with arrogance, he growled, "You broke my rule, new girl." And before she could ask what rule he meant, Rex shoved her backpack to the ground, books spilling out like scattered secrets. Marla flicked her hair and sneered about arrogant strays, and Stone cracked his knuckles, promising that she wouldn't make the same mistake again. Yet even as they stepped closer, too close, Alina didn't flinch, didn't shrink, didn't tremble, because she had lived through storms far darker than high school cruelty. And deep inside her chest, beneath her calm exterior, something ancient stirred, something primal, something that made her eyes gleam for a fraction of a second. But Damon only saw her stillness as disrespect, and with a cruel grin he raised a hand, signaling his gang to finish what he started. The crowd leaned in, phones lifted, recording what they thought would be another display of Damon's dominance. Another broken soul added to his list, but the moment Rex reached for her shoulder, just 5 seconds before his hand could touch her, an earth-shaking growl erupted from the shadows, a sound so deep and powerful it made lockers vibrate, and sent birds scattering from the rooftop, and gasps shattered the silence as a massive, sleek, black shape emerged from the edge of the courtyard, moving with lethal grace, golden eyes glowing like molten fire, muscles rippling under obsidian fur. And before anyone understood what they were seeing, a full-grown panther stepped between Alina and the bullies, its tail flicking with controlled fury as its head lowered in warning. Screams erupted, phones dropped. Damon staggered back in disbelief, because the panther wasn't just any wild animal. It moved with purpose, with intelligence, standing as if it were guarding a queen. And Alina exhaled slowly, her voice soft but commanding as she whispered, "Easy, Shadow," instantly revealing that this magnificent creature belonged to her. The courtyard exploded with chaos, students running, teachers yelling, Rex falling backward in terror, Marla choking on her scream. But Damon's pride wouldn't let him flee, and though his legs trembled, he forced a smirk, asking with a cracking voice, "What is that thing?" To which Alina finally looked up, her expression calm but eyes sharp with fire as she replied, "My protector." And as Shadow bared his fangs, Damon realized that for the first time in years, he wasn't the predator, he was the prey. Whispers spread like wildfire, rumors forming instantly, legends being born in real time. And somewhere within the panic and awe, a spark ignited, because the arrival of the new girl and her panther wasn't just a dramatic entrance. It was the beginning of Blackridge High's downfall, the unraveling of Damon's reign, and the rise of a force none of them were ready for. Shadow took one powerful step forward. Damon stumbled in fear, and Alina simply closed her eyes, whispering something no one else heard. A promise, a warning, a declaration that this school, this chapter of her life would not break her, because she wasn't alone. And as the students watched her walk away with a panther by her side, Many felt something strange, admiration, hope, curiosity, while Damon felt only rage, humiliation, and a desperate hunger for revenge. And as Alina disappeared through the hallway doors, Shadow's glowing eyes lingering on Damon one last time, the students knew one thing for certain. Blackridge High would never, ever be the same again. And if they wanted to witness what happened next, they'd better stay tuned, because the story was only getting started. The shock of that morning didn't fade as quickly as Alina hoped, because by lunchtime the entire school buzzed like a disturbed hive, hallways crackling with fear, awe and wild rumors about the mysterious new girl who walked with a panther as if it were simply part of her shadow. Teachers whispered nervously behind classroom doors, security guards patrolled with shaking hands, and the principal frantically called the district board, desperate to understand how a student had entered school grounds with a lethal predator. But no amount of frantic adult discussion could eclipse what was happening among the students everywhere Alina walked. They parted like water around a stone, giving her space, staring at her with wide, fascinated eyes, some whispering that she was a witch, others claiming she was part of some secret tribe, a few even insisting Shadow was not an animal at all but some ancient spirit bound to her. Yet despite the attention, Alina remained calm, steady, moving through the halls with quiet purpose, her hand occasionally brushing Shadow's head, grounding her, reminding her of the bond forged long ago in the darkest chapter of her past. But while the students feared her, Damon Creed burned with humiliation, pacing in a hidden corner of the courtyard with his fists clenched, replaying the moment he had stumbled backward like a coward, the image of Shadow's glowing eyes haunting him, and each time the memory surfaced, anger twisted inside him like barbed wire. No one had ever made him feel small. No one had ever challenged him publicly, and certainly no one had ever made him retreat. So he swore loudly enough for his gang to hear, "This isn't over," before calling an emergency meeting in the old gym, a place known for secrets, intimidation, and the birth of cruel decisions. Rex limped in first, still shaken. Marla tried to act tough, but her voice wavered whenever she spoke the word Panther, and Stone remained silent. His usual bravado drowned beneath the memory of Shadow's fangs, and as Damon slammed his hand onto an old metal bench, he growled that no new girl, no matter how strange, would steal his power. Not in his school, not in front of his crowd. So he ordered them to find out everything about her, where she came from, what she was hiding, and most importantly, how a teenage girl ended up with a creature that could tear them apart in seconds. But unknown to Damon, Alina already sensed the tension rising, sensed the shift in the atmosphere, because Shadow kept glancing back, ears twitching, warning her that danger was circling closer. And though she tried to maintain her new routine, attending class, staying quiet, avoiding unnecessary conflict, she could feel the old rhythm returning, the feeling of being hunted, the feeling of not being welcomed anywhere. And during her final class of the day, she felt a chill run through her spine when Damon himself strolled into the doorway, leaning against the frame with the arrogance he used as a shield, pretending he wasn't terrified just hours before. The teacher tried to protest his presence, but Damon ignored her, eyes locked on Alina with a cold smile as he announced to the entire class that he wanted a talk after school, a talk where she would explain what she really is. And though the students gasped, half expecting Shadow to burst in through the window, Alina simply nodded, because running was not in her nature, hiding was not her way, and she knew that bullies like Damon only grew stronger when no one stood up to them. After school, as the golden sun dipped behind the tall iron fences of Blackridge High, Alina walked toward the abandoned gym where Damon waited, Shadow padding silently beside her, each step echoing like thunder in the empty halls. And when she pushed open the creaking doors, she found Damon standing under a flickering light, his gang behind him. Though none of them dared step too close, Damon forced a smirk, pretending he wasn't pale, pretending his hands didn't tremble when Shadow's silhouette appeared behind her. But before he could unleash whatever threats he had prepared, Alina spoke calmly, clearly, powerfully, telling him that she didn't want trouble, that she only wanted a chance to start fresh, that she didn't care about his so-called rules or his fragile kingdom. And for a moment Damon's face hardened, trying to maintain control of the narrative, but something about her voice, steady, fearless, ancient, made him hesitate, only for his ego to shove the hesitation aside as he shouted that no outsider would undermine him, Not while he ruled Blackridge. Yet the moment he took one threatening step forward, Shadow's growl rolled through the room like thunder, shaking dust from the beams. But what happened next silenced even the echoes in the walls. Alina raised her hand, and Shadow stopped instantly, not because he was afraid, but because her command carried authority far beyond a simple bond between girl and animal, and Damon's heart pounded as he realized this wasn't a partnership. It was something deeper, something mystical, something he didn't understand. She then stepped forward, looking Damon straight in the eyes, telling him that his rule ended the moment he chose fear over honor, control over kindness, dominance over humanity. And though Damon tried to interrupt, her words cut through him again and again, leaving cracks in the armor he had worn for years. And then, with the entire gym watching, she said something that froze Damon more effectively than Shadow's growl. Power isn't something you take, it's something others give you. And today you lost it, and at that moment, the doors behind them swung open slightly as several students peeked in, having followed out of curiosity, watching their king crumble for the second time in a single day. Unable to stand the humiliation, Damon lunged not with courage, but with frustration, and Shadow launched forward in a blur of obsidian, pinning him to the ground with a force that made the gym floor crack. Under the pressure, and though the Panther didn't harm him, the message was unforgettable. One more step out of line, and Damon's reign wouldn't just fall, it would shatter. As Alina called Shadow back and turned to leave, the watching students whispered, some in awe, some in respect, but many in relief because someone had finally stood up to the tyrant who had ruled them with fear for years. And as she walked out of the gym with Shadow by her side, the dust casting long shadows behind them, a new energy pulsed through the school, an energy of change, courage, rebellion, and the promise of a different tomorrow. And for those watching, one thing became clear. This was only the beginning of Alina's story, her power, her mystery, her destiny, and, if they wanted to, witness the next chapter of this extraordinary journey, they needed to stay, follow, and subscribe, because things at Blackridge High were about to get even wilder, darker, and more epic than anyone could imagine.